Roy Snyder. He had a curious mind. He wanted to know. He wanted to talk about sharks in particular, but fish in general.
I love learning about how you were, you started spearfishing, and then you got into shooting sharks, especially great whites. I mean, what an exciting life you've led.
Nobody's had a better life, and probably not a more exciting one either. It's been full of adventure and diversity and wonder. I'm a fortunate lady.
And I love seeing the documentary about how you were one of the few women at the time, especially they describe it as a macho sport, right?
Yes, there weren't many women, and but I was already snorkeling and spearing fish from my father, who had a weak stomach, before I met Ron, before I joined the spearfishing club. And so I joined the club actually knowing what was in store for me and what I had to do and be. And that's where I met my husband, and you know the rest of the story.
Now, was it a challenge for you buying in an area where women weren't? I think at the documentary said that women weren't allowed, or some men didn't allow women on the trip. I mean, did you have to fight sometimes to get on those vehicles?
Did. When I was told I couldn't go on the first great white shark trip, the captain wouldn't allow women on his boat ever. I had to stay behind, and I thought, I'll never stay behind again, and I never have.
That's great.
My husband wouldn't even go and work for the Arabs in Arabia without me. And they accepted me. They had to. All it needed was for Ron to say, I can't work without Valerie. Frankly, I don't think he could. I was so wonderful at taking care of making sure he had a sandwich for lunch and a cup of tea, all those things, all those womanly things. And then I could also dive and work with marine animals, which pleased him greatly.
Well, I love that he stood up for you and said, I'm not going without her. That's such a beautiful marriage. That's such a beautiful thing to have.
He needed me. He really did.
Don't they all? Don't they all?
But they've got to know they do. That makes a big difference.
And you're very brave. I think if I saw some of the footage that they showed that you shot of a shark coming at you, I think I would have a heart attack. So for you, seeing a great white for the first time, what was that feeling? An exciting feeling? A scary feeling?
No, excited. Well, we had to wait 3 days for the thing to come anyway, so we were very pleased to see it. That was extremely exciting, and we had very primitive cages back then, but I was keen to get in the water and take photographs. So I was already taking photographs in the 70s. It was a 2.25 square film, and you had 12 shots in the camera. So it was a big thing to suit up, get ready to dive, go down in the cage and only have 12 shots. You knew what you were shooting. You were very careful. Even today, when there's 200 shots in the camera, I still stick with maybe 20 or 30 and don't go very careful. It's my training.
Now, in researching what you've done in the past, you worked on Jaws. You actually provided the live footage of sharks underwater, the camera footage.
Well, that was Ron mainly. He was the underwater cameraman. I was just the assistant. And we lucked out there because the shark came around the back of Rodney Fox's abalone boat, which was standing in for the boat they used in Jaws. Everything was half size. And it hit the half size cage, got tangled in the winch attached to the abalone boat, broke the winch off the side of the deck and went tumbling down in a big mess. And Ron happened to be down there filming, waiting for the camera, the stuntman to come down. But the stuntman didn't ever go down. He was terrified. And when he got into the water, he couldn't breathe. So we really didn't get any footage with the stuntman they sent out from Hollywood. We had to pretend for the over-the-shoulder shots. It was me in the ordinary cage, but nobody could tell what size the cage was or the person, just wearing the same wetsuit and tank. It was a good experience working on Jaws. And Richard Zanuck and David Brown were very pleased. Universal was pleased. They took us to Martha's Vineyard. We couldn't work there, but we could be extras on the beach, and we got to know all the people involved with the shoot, only briefly, except for Roy Snyder. We used to sit on the beach with Roy, and we were just sort of like extras in the film at that particular time. And he was with us a lot because he was so curious about the marine world. He had a curious mind. He wanted to know. He wanted to talk about sharks in particular, but fish in general. So we really enjoyed Roy Schneider. And then when we came back and all that bad publicity about sharks came out, and gung-ho men were going on big killing sprees, killing any shark. It doesn't have to be a dangerous one. It's got that word shark attached to it. And Universal took us to America again, and we toured the States. We did every talk show telling the people of the US not to be afraid of sharks. Jaws was a fictitious story about a fictitious shark. And Ron would always say, you don't go to New York and expect to see King Kong on the Empire State Building. So why do you go in the water and expect to see Jaws? It was a fictitious story. That shark doesn't exist. The ones we have are only half the size or less. And people still wanted to have a monster. I think traditionally through history, there's always been a monster, be it a witch, the devil, a monster in the bush. In America, Bigfoot. Always something.
So I want to ask you, you take Chris Hemsworth swimming with sharks and Shark Beach. So what was that experience like? Was he brave?
Of course. He didn't have to be brave. He's naturally brave. He learned to dive specially, and he wanted to dive with sharks, and he loved it. And he came out of the water very, very happy. And he just talked about marine conservation and land conservation. He's a great conservationist. I wish we had more well-known, famous people like Chris. He's a jewel in the crown, absolutely. And he wants to go diving again. I'd like to take him where there's really big sharks. Fiji is the place. And there's a village there that is, well, you see it in the film Playing with Sharks. It's the end section of the whole film. Those big bull sharks in your face, that'd give him a little bit of a stir up, I think. People are very afraid of bull sharks there. They are attackers of man. Well, biters of man. I don't think they attack deliberately.
So I think, I don't know if I heard it correctly, I think they took a nibble from your chin, one of the sharks.
Oh, that was an accident. I've been bitten 4 times. That was an accident. There was a shark frenzy, and I had a fish in my hand. And one of the sharks, it was a grey reef, left the frenzy and charged. And I had on the mesh suit. And all the teeth went into the suit, except my chin stuck out. And I got 4 incisions, one quite deep. It let go again, but by then I was bleeding quite profusely from the chin. Doesn't sound very glamorous, does it? And we were down 60 feet, so I headed for the surface, and we always have someone on the surface, a watching guy. And he grabbed me and dragged me over to the tinny, the dory, the aluminium tinny, and helped me in. My husband stayed down there quite happily filming away. He wasn't about to come up and see if his wife was alive or dead. And that was just a small bite. I can still feel the scar under there.
Wow, scary experience.
You're more likely to get bitten by a dog than by a
Right.
shark. Most certainly, there's hundreds of dog bites a year. There's only very few shark bites compared to the bites by other creatures. Even crocodiles take quite a few people in Australia, and they don't get the bad press the poor old shark does. I think the human race wants to have a monster out there to be afraid of. The saying in Australia used to be, the only good shark is a dead one. I like to think that more people are becoming around to my way of thinking that sharks are to be understood, that we can work with them if we need to. And although they are potentially dangerous, if you behave around them in a certain manner, there's nothing to fear.
Well, Valerie Taylor, thank you so much. I really love the documentary and seeing your life, and really an exciting life that you have. And thank you so much for talking to me.
Oh, it's a pleasure.